Welcome to the Science Plus Love Equals Cure podcast, the STXBP1 10-minute monthly update. This is podcast number 21. I'm Charlene Sunrigby, president and co-founder of the STXBP1 Foundation, and I'm also mom to STXer Juno and her big brother Luca. Okay, today's topics. We have several short topics and then a main topic that I'm very excited about. First topic, STXBP1 Family Summit in the US in July. Second, STXBP1 Research Roundtable and European Summit in October. Then the $1 Million Bike Ride in June. And then our main topic today is going to be a frankly fascinating interview with Sietske van Till, who is the first author on a paper with a provocative title. You constantly have to be switched on. All right, let's get to our first topic. The STXBP1 Family Summit in the US. The registration is now open, and you'll be able to get to the registration link on our website or in this podcast links. It is going to be the 18th through the 20th of July in Colorado, in collaboration with our longtime partners at Children's Colorado Hospital. And such an amazing team there, led by Dr. Scott Demarest, Dr. Andrea Mille, Dr. Marga Sens, and Katie Angioni. And we'll get to also meet many more of the team there. The conference will include science updates, family support sessions, research opportunities, including being able to participate in the STAR study for our natural history study, and lots of networking and connection time with families. All right, second topic, the STXBP1 Research Roundtable and European Summit. Registration has opened for this meeting as well. It is going to take place in Heidelberg, Germany this year, the 8th through the 11th of October. So you may be wondering, well, why are there two meetings happening? This is something that we started a few years ago. We are alternating years for the STXBP1 Research Roundtable between the US and Europe. And we're doing this to strengthen and continue to build our international research community. This is so important. So we'll have the Research Roundtable for the first 3 days. And we will also have a family day on the 11th of October. And during the family day, we'll have science updates, research opportunities, and time to connect with other families in Europe. I will also definitely be there. And so I hope to see you there. The registration link is also on our website and going to be in this podcast link. Okay, third topic, $1 Million Bike Ride. This multi-year program has been led by Lulu of Lulu's Crew and her rockin' parents, Erin and Ben Prosser. Through this program, over $900,000 has been raised for STXBP1 research. So the goal, of course, this year is let's get to 1 million. The $1 Million Bike Ride is going to be held in Philadelphia on Saturday, June 14. There is a virtual option. There is still time to join. This program, through multiple grants, has funded mice work in multiple labs, biomarker development, endpoint development, the first clinical trial for phenylbutyrate, drug repurposing, and more. And this has happened in labs across the world, in the US, in Europe, in Australia. So raise money and get fit. There is also, again, going to be a bike for the European $1 Million Bike Ride featuring the Netherlands and Belgian teams as part of ESCO. So check both of those out. Really exciting time to be able to raise money for research for STXBP1. Okay, let's turn to the main topic today. I was able to interview Sietske van Till, who is a researcher at Erasmus MC in Rotterdam in the Netherlands. She and several co-authors published a paper in the prestigious journal, Orphanet Journal of Rare Diseases. And this article just came out in February of 2025. It has an attention-getting title that I think many of our parents and caregivers can relate to. So the title is, "You Constantly Have to Be Switched On." A qualitative interview study of parents of children with STXBP1 related disorders in the Netherlands. Let's listen in. Well, Sietske, welcome to the Science Plus Love Equals Cure podcast. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you for having me. I'm really happy to join you.
Yeah, I asked Sietske van Till to join us. She is the lead author on a new paper called "You Constantly Have to Be Switched On." And it is about the STXBP1 caregiver experience. And so I'm excited for her to share a bit on the paper and why she and her team were motivated to put it together. But so first I'll ask you, Sietske, can you tell us a little bit about your background?
Yeah, of course. So I'm a PhD researcher at the Erasmus Medical Center in Rotterdam, the Netherlands, and I work within the Brain Model Project, which is a multi-centered research project in the Netherlands, which, yeah, focuses on using neural cell models for studying disease mechanisms and drug screening for developmental disorders such as STXBP1. But within this project, I focus on the ethical aspects together with Edina Bunnik. So we aim to investigate how this research should be conducted in a responsible way.
What does that mean in terms of the ethics and how research should be conducted in a responsible way?
So we try to look into the conditions under which it should be conducted. So yeah, you should keep in mind that we are working with children with STXBP1, so yeah, often also vulnerable children. But we also try to understand what are the needs of families. So how can this kind of research really contribute in addressing the needs of families? So we do that with doing more, conceptual work, so to say, but we also do interview studies in this case to ask parents. So what are your perspectives on this kind of research, and also what are your perspectives on letting your own child participate? So how do you think about the burdens? What are your hopes of research? So these are the kinds of questions that we want to investigate.
That's great. And that leads directly into this project, since it's a parent and caregiver project that involves getting the parent perspective. So, but it's a little bit different in terms of not their perspective on research, but really what it's like to live
Yeah.
with and care for a child with STXBP1. So, um, love to hear. Can you talk a little bit about the overall project and what the aim was?
Yes, so we wanted to conduct an interview study in the first place to hear the perspectives about research participation, but we also wanted to know what are the overall experiences of parents. So what is the impact of raising a child with S6P1 and what are the needs? So I visited parents at home and I asked them these questions, but above all, I wanted to hear their stories and I wanted to hear the issues they found important to share with us. And I noticed that a lot of parents were really motivated to participate in the studies and to share their stories, which is really valuable for this type of research. So these are the results that we reported in this article. So the overall experiences and the impact on the families in daily life.
And in terms of those impacts and the experiences, I think the title, which is so provocative and really captured a lot for me personally as a parent. But what did you take away as the main insights from the interviews?
Yeah, so we titled the article, "You Constantly Have to Be Switched On." And the reason for that is that when I asked these parents, what is the impact on your daily life, multiple parents mentioned that they were constantly switched on. So they were constantly occupied with caring for the child and everything which comes with that. So they were always in an activated state. So we try to unpack that and to show that, of course, there are very significant impacts. So, for example, when your child has severe epilepsy, this has a huge impact on the child and on the family as well. But there are also all these other things that that adds up. So, for example, having to arrange care and all the bureaucratic things that you have to do, and some misunderstandings that some people may face in daily lives. So this is the thing that we wanted to show in this article. So we try to unpack this overall experiences of, yeah, constantly being active, always be alert in certain sense.
Yeah, I thought that the tables with the different kind of categorizations of people's comments and then the specific examples was just incredibly powerful. So how does this study and this paper align with some of the other studies that have been published about patient experience and kind of the burden for STXBP1 patients and families?
Well, in the literature, there are already some studies conducted among parents with a child with special needs, but most of the time it are more broader defined groups, children with developmental disorders in general, and all kinds of impacts on the daily life are mentioned. So we know that there are impacts on relationships and also on the emotional and mental well-being, physical well-being of parents. But I think what this study adds is that we really try to show the stories behind these impacts, just show how that works. So we try to provide a framework in which we can show the impacts. So we try to provide a framework to better understand the experiences of parents with STXBP1. So we showed, well, caring is of course a very important thing. This is not only providing medical care, but it's also just serving the needs of the child in the daily life. But it's also recognizing the needs, especially when the child cannot verbalize their needs themselves if they cannot speak. So we really try to show that it's not only the symptoms of the child in isolation that leads to all this impact, but it's really the accumulation of all these things that can put a high burden on families. And as I said, it's the previous interview studies focus on broader defined groups, and I think the rarity of STXBP1 is also relevant. So it's a rare condition. When the child is diagnosed, parents never heard about STXBP1. They were not familiar with it themselves. There's little information available. There are no treatments. The social environment of the family also never heard about STXBP1. So you constantly have to explain it to everyone. So this also contributes to the feeling of uncertainty and sometimes frustration as well for parents. So I think this is important to show that.
Yeah, and isolation, absolutely.
Yeah.
Did anything surprise you about the caregivers' experiences or anything that came up in the interviews?
I think what really surprised me was the diversity of experiences among parents. So while all these children share a diagnosis, there's a wide range in their personalities, their strengths, their needs. But also parents experience their daily lives quite differently. So while some parents really normalize the situation and maybe also embraced it to a certain extent, there were also some people who were still struggling and trying to cope with their situation. And also some parents had really high hopes for the development of new treatments, for example. But there were also some parents who said, I at this point, I also have other priorities. So I really need the accessibility of care and support to be improved, or I really need emotional support now to cope with the emotional impact of our situation. So, for example, concerns about the future of my child. So there was a wide range of experiences and needs. And we also had a more overarching observation that in our article, we described that for parents, caring for the child can be very hard work. But it's not only hard work. So I was really touched by the way that parents talked about their child. So a lot of parents described their child as being very sweet, but also very interested in their environment, very social. And yeah, you might say that, yeah, all parents say that about their child. Every parent loves their child, but it was really interesting to see how consistently and strongly this came up during the interviews, particularly with parents among parents with a child with STXBP1. So this really shows how that parents also embraced who their child was, which also had a positive impact on their lives.
Yeah, it's really just a very complex situation, right? With, this core of love, for your child, but then there really is, a very complex situation around that. What do you see is the importance of this study or this type of study?
Um, First of all, I think it's just important to share these stories. So to provide this framework which helps to understand what life is like for these families. We hope that this also leads to more social recognition. But we also identified a few unmet needs, so to say. So for example, many parents said that when they received the diagnosis, they received very little emotional support while they really needed it. And they mentioned the lack of information, of course, about STXBP1, how it develops over time. And some parents also said it would really help me if there would be a case manager, for example, so a social worker who could help me to navigate through the healthcare system. So I think there are some important steps that are being taken to address this need. So, for example, the natural history studies that are now being conducted, these are really important to better understand how STXBP1 develops and to provide this information. But I think there are also some other things that still need to be done to really improve this care and support for families. And I think also that it really helps to prioritize in drugs development. So seizures are a big priority, of course. However, we saw that also when the child did not have any seizures, families still face also other challenges, for example, related to the communication problems or cognitive impairments or behavior. So it shows also the need for therapies that can support children and their development also more broadly.
Yeah, yeah. That absolutely, that has been a major theme for us around the STXBP1 is a seizure disorder, but that's not the only thing. There's this really significant set of other symptoms where our kids and our families really need effective therapies to really address those, other areas. So that is fantastic. Sietske, thank you so much for spending some time with me today. Very excited about the paper, and thank you to the families who participated.
Thank you.